Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to welcome you for this unique talk in this series. Today's talk is bordering on philosophy as well as sciences, life sciences. And in a way, we are trying to build a bridge between the various domains of knowledge. We are trying to have a synergy with our ancient scriptures, with the knowledge that has been there, with the spiritualism, with our notions, and our belief system. And as Technocrat Talks, we have no domain boundaries to worry about. So we can do this unique, pleasurable job of course, integrating various spheres of knowledge and build bridges. So I'll share my screen. So today we are going to talk about possibilities of superhuman life form. And this is the second last talk of this series of 12, talking of biological intelligence. And our previous talks have been largely related to biology, the biological intelligence. Today, while the biological intelligence is forming the backdrop, but it is the discussion is going to be more philosophical in nature. So it's we are transcending to a different domain. Okay, so there are some FAQs about superhuman life forms, questions which come to our mind. People may or may not ask them, but then there are the questions. How does one compare two different life forms, two different species? How does one compare? That is attribute by attribute. How will you compare? How do you make a synopsis? Like in which is aspect, which who is superior? Yeah, and why it is so hard to come across extraterrestrial life form. There are so many planets, so many stars in our universe. Yet we have we have found it very difficult to come across any ET life form yet. Okay, and what makes humans superiors distinctly to other known forms on Earth? Is superhuman life possible at all from whatever science we know? Okay. Whatever science of biointelligence we have been talking, in light of that, is superhuman life possible at all? Okay. And if at all, how it could be superior to what we have? And how could it look like? How it could be different from human? Okay. So these are the questions. Before we address these questions, of course, we have to brush up a little bit of biology. This is a known knowledge, but I am representing it in my own way. Therefore, it is having a yellow background. So, if you consider the summary of various life forms, there are single cellular life forms without mitochondria. So, single cell without mitochondria, without elaborate cytoskeleton system, without nuclei. Okay, and much simpler cells, and they have only some intracellular level intelligence, limited one, and then they divide and fragment into similar cells, and they do not have any elaborate control of energetics. They are dependent on external resources for their own energetics. Okay. So simpler life forms, single cellular without mitochondria. The next one is single cellular but with mitochondria. So at some stage of evolution, some smaller cells from the previous ones entered some bigger cells from the previous one, and they formed they were like parasites within the cell within the cell, and then they evolved a system, a cooperative system, and they assumed the role of mitochondria for autonomically controlling the energetics, for autonomically multiplying as required within the host. Okay, and then in the host also the further elaborate skeleton, cytoskeleton got developed, nuclei got developed, uh, the chromatids got developed, and so it has gone further well beyond that. Okay, so that's the second kind of more advanced life. Then there are multicellular life forms where number of cells single cells have fused together to form, or not fused together, but yeah, they are developed together to form a cooperative system, and together they are called as one entity. So plant kingdom is one distinct category where they synthesized food from inorganic elements through photosynthesis. They have chlorophyll, and what they do not have is something like muscle for reversible uh, movements. For kinesis, sometimes they have contractile fibrils, all right, but it is one-time actuation. Like there are some flowery plants which have some buds. You touch the bud, it violently changes the shape and sprays the tiny seeds all over. But it's a single actuation. Okay, it's not like muscle which is reversible. Okay, and in same category we have probably pitcher plant, carnivorous plant, etc. So some simple mechanisms are there which can cause some one-time movement, but not quite like muscles. Okay. And in plant kingdom, most of the movements and growth, etc., happens through simpler rules of nature, such as vacuum, capillarity, surface tension, osmosis, use of gravity, the leaves seeking sun, roots seeking the resources in the soil or water. Yeah. So simpler laws of nature govern their growth and survival. And then there is animal kingdom, which have elaborate muscles for causing movements, which can apply force. And within animals, of course, there are vertebrae and non-vertebrae. Those who have skeleton system structure, rigid structure, versus those which do not have. Vertebrae will also have kinematic pairs, some linkages in their limbs to cause well-defined movements. Okay, and then there are mammals and non-mammals. The non-mammals, the eggs are laid, and the eggs come pre-packaged with the food, which can, and the resources which can develop into a new animal. And the mammals are the ones where the eggs are remain inside, and the nutrition is supplied by the mother system. The respiration and nutrition is supplied by the mother system, and also some functions like thermostatic functions are there in the womb, because they require that kind of protection until they are born. Okay, so those are mammals. Yeah. Now, talking of human, we are members of animal kingdom. We are vertebrae, and we are mammals. Plus, we have neural intelligence, we have psychological intelligence, we have intellect, and we have capability to control our individual finger movements, and we have much better dexterity control to be able to manipulate our environment with our hands and do many things which other animals can't. Now, this has given us capability to manipulate the environment and process our own food like no other species can do. And then we have much better communication, much better cooperative community living as compared to others. We can communicate, we can archive knowledge, we can learn much better, and we have added on lot of inorganic strength to our biological systems, to our bodies, in terms of specs for comfort, survival, and defense. Specs meaning how much force you can apply, how fast you can move, okay, what is your size. So those are the specs, the biological specs. So we have added vastly to all these and extended it well beyond what was naturally there. So what is supernatural or superhuman to us? Generally, our thought process and beliefs are guided by our ancient scriptures, mythology, and spiritualism, not so much by science and cold logic. And this picture is just representing the mythological leanings that we have had. So I'm not talking further on this picture, it's just to build the mood. Okay. Misinterpretation uh, about concept of what is soul. Now, in our scriptures, there is a lot of mention of Atma and soul and all. But the way it is represented and the way we interpret it is quite different from what it must have been originally. Yeah. Like, for example, if every living being is supposed to have a soul, and soul cannot be created or destroyed, it would imply that literally we could have as many lives as there are souls in the universe. So how does population increase then? Now, one phrase which got missed in this bold statement: souls cannot be created or destroyed with the body. Now, with the body was understood, but that has been ignored. So, yeah, we can be born, we can die, but the soul is neither created with our body nor it gets destroyed with our body. That was the meaning, actually. Yeah. So, apparently, they have not considered at that point in time single cellular organisms because they did not have microscope, so they would not know that there are bacteria and single organisms, and there is something like single cellular and multicellular species. Okay, so they would not have considered single cellular organism for sure, and they have apparently not considered even the plant kingdom species to have soul, because they have considered plant kingdom more as an ecosystem to support life rather than life itself. Now, if if we are multicellular organisms, which we are biologically, if each cell has its own soul, how many souls does our body have? Okay, our body has one soul, plus each cell will have its own soul. So how many souls do we carry when we move around? And if we consume, let us say, a spoonful of curd or yogurt, how many bacteria are there in spoonful of curd? So how many souls we consume just like that? Yeah. So it looks a strange argument. So souls are essentially, they have been linked to animal kingdom species who have neural level intelligence. In scriptures, they have said that there are so many yonis in which we could be born. Now, yoni literally means vagina. And which species have vaginas? So obviously the animal kingdom. Okay. Multicellular animal kingdoms will only have vaginas. So we are talking of only this category when we talk of soul. The original abstract concept, which must have been there, uh, was something like thoughts, ideas, and spirit. Our spirit never dies, and it stays in the universe or Brahman, only to reappear later again and again in different manifestations with evolution. Okay. It has nowhere said that souls cannot evolve. They will evolve for sure. Okay. They will manifest also. They will evolve also. Okay. And soul is not something we call each soul as one unit. There's nothing like that. So it's not a feature defined by some units and how many pieces are there. It's nothing like that. Okay. So it's a collection of thoughts, ideas, and spirit. Okay. So this means that the neural intelligence can get influenced by the knowledge ecosystem and intelligence existing in the universe. And whatever karma we do during our lifetime eventually enriches the universal intelligence. So whatever we do goes back to universe and it enriches for sure. Okay. It's not saying that universe is not evolving. Okay. That the souls are not evolving. They could be evolving for sure. Yeah. And this concept makes a lot of sense, and it's in agreement with the scientific logic also. Because nowadays we have added man-made literature, libraries, and IT universe, entire IT universe has been added, www, which is the knowledge repository as well as source of knowledge and connectivity media for us to get benefited immensely. Okay, so that's what is supporting us now. That's a man-made uh, contribution to the universe of knowledge. So by all means, it can evolve. We cannot deny ourselves evolution, the right to evolve, because so far whatever superiority we have is on account of evolution. Okay. So it would be counterproductive if we say that no, we are not entitled to evolution. Yeah. So the notion of what is supernatural power for us, what do we consider as superhuman or supernatural? Let us discuss that. So some creature which has variable morphology in terms of size, specs, number of arms. We consider our mythological gods, for example. Okay, they have variable size. They have some chimera morphology, like half lion, half man, half elephant, half man, half ape, half man, a mermaid or a merlion. In different civilizations, there have been in different mythologies, and in each mythology, there are some such notions, some such beliefs. So, supernatural power is granted in all the cultures. It's treated as someone who can probably move much faster than us. Moving means running, swimming, flying, all put together, and which can apply much bigger force and energy to move mountains literally. Yeah. And which has immense knowledge and data much greater than human capability can store. Yeah. And superhuman for us is somebody who can communicate and move virtually, remotely, without having to physically travel. Okay. Can be antaryami, can read thoughts and travel in time. Now, travel in time is bold because this is something that we have not been able to achieve. Everything else we have nearly achieved, whatever is above. Superhuman is somebody, supernatural is something who can perform Leela. Now, Leela is a big word. It's a combination of scripted shows, visual effect, some chamatkars, enactments, miracles, combo of all. Okay. It's done for illustration, for education, for various purposes. It could be done. Yeah. So that's Leela. And our notion of supernatural power is that some supernatural power must be there, which we call as God, who has made the world. Now, another counter comes to this, that if God has made us, who has made God? Okay, because you say no, God was already there, then we can say nature was already there. Nature has made us. So we call. So, what is the sanctity of using the supernatural word? Whatever is there is natural. It is natural force. It is natural. We may not know it. It may be lesser known. Fine. Okay, but it is still natural. The fact that it is supernatural, I mean, we have no proof for that. And supernatural is something which does not follow the laws of nature, the laws of physics, chemistry, biology. We have never proven that there is any such entity which can defy the laws of physics, chemistry, biology. Yeah. Now, have some features which may be unusual. Unusual is fine, but it's still natural. Yeah. So, the supernatural power is something which can grant us safety, health, wealth, protection, comfort, assurance, peace of mind, justice, ensure justice, etc. Yeah. So, ensure justice, etc. So, on how we have added on capability to our inherent capabilities. Let us see that. So, many points which were there in previous slide we have already addressed. So, like earlier, we used to find a cave in mountain to live. Now we transport mountain to build our own designer dwellings. We have machines now which add to our force, power, speed, so that we can do much bigger work than what we could have done biologically. We have added immensely to our manufacturing capability, medicines, appliances, devices, to improve our survivability and quality of life, the scale of work, the volume of work. we are able to do is much bigger than what we could have done biologically. Now we have the vehicles to transport much faster through land, water, air, and even space. Yeah. Now we have X-ray vision, we have radars, we have infrared vision, we have lasers, we have transducers, sensors, ranging from telescope to microscope instruments to extend our resolution and range of senses many times over. Yeah. And we have formidable arms and weapon system, about which lesser said is better. We have computers, cell phones, AR, VR, MR, augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality, and WWW for vastly extending our knowledge, communication, capability to do Leela, and create our own information resources in the universe. And we have created our own IT universe. But having done this, we could address all the points, bullet points that we had in the previous slide, which we have attributed to supernatural life form. But what we have failed to do is time machine. Why? Because that concept itself is flawed. Now, why it is flawed? Because somebody who is inside the machine should travel in time, or somebody who's outside the machine should travel. Now, obviously, somebody who's inside the machine will travel. But the stories which are there about time machine, the person who is sitting in the machine remains the same, and the whole world outside gets transformed and goes back or forward in time. So it is defying the logic. Now, theory of relativity does say that, okay, if somebody travels faster than speed of light, you can go back in time. So suppose we have a time machine which can travel faster than light, and somebody sits in that time machine. Now, as it travels, it will not suddenly jump back by 1,000 years. Okay, so it will have a replay, playback. So it will go back few milliseconds, few seconds, few minutes, and when it goes back, the person sitting in the time machine will get up and come out of the machine, and then the game will stop there, because once he's out of the machine, he can't go further back. Yeah. So that's the logic. And if somebody is going forward in time, if one could, he will die very soon anyway. So that's why the time machine has not worked and it will not work. The concept is flawed. Now, having done so many additions to our innate capability, have we spoiled the nature? Why? Whatever we have come to has evolved naturally through our neural intelligence, through our biological capability, isn't it? And whatever we have still follows the laws of nature. Whatever we have made, it is following, everything is following the laws of physics, chemistry, biology, nuclear physics, economics, and so on. So nowhere we are saying that we are defying the laws of nature. No. We are not doing something which is supernatural. There is nothing like supernatural. Everything will remain natural only. Yeah. So therefore, what we have done is our new natural. It's a natural, still natural, but like new normal, there is a new natural for us. Our bodies and lifestyle has been getting adapted to these changes, as long as these changes were not explosive kind of changes. They are gradual changes, slow and steady. The bodies are designed to adapt, and they have been adapting. And we have the wisdom and awareness of guarding against explosive kind of changes, which will affect our survivability adversely and cause self-destruction. So we are intelligent enough not to allow that. Yeah. And we will always find ways of adapting to negate the bad effect of slower changes, to preserve the other life forms which continue to remain relevant for us going further. Whatever is not going to be relevant may get extinct. We don't care, and we need not care. Why we should? Yeah, that's the way the nature is. Yeah. So now let us come to one point, that suppose you are comparing two species, two life forms. How does one compare? So one is the comparison on specs for survival. On specs means the body physical size, the force you can apply, the speed with which you can move, etc. The conditions for survival, the temperature range, the pressure range, the humidity range, the chemical surrounding that you require for survival, the inputs which are required for survival, and the occurrence, whether you are aquatic or you are aerial or you are underwater or underground. Yeah. And how do the species reproduce, whether it is sexual reproduction or asexual reproduction? The adaptability to environmental changes, how much and how far we are able to adapt. The physical dimensions, of course, what is our physical size, weight, number of arms, how many arms, the range of arms, the reach of arms, and so many. The capabilities and speed of movements in air, water, land, etc. How fast we can move. Number of senses that we have and their specs. Okay. Number of movement mechanisms, number of muscles, and the force that they could apply. Yes. Now, some other capabilities where we are distinctly green, and these are applicable only to human by far. Therefore, they are in green. Is capability to learn, grow, and improve our own survivability and comfort by manipulating the environment. So, capability to modify and tailor the environment. That's a unique capability we have. Others have to some extent, but not comparable with what we have. And to add inorganic brute force, speed, power through machines to aid our body and to add to our own innate capabilities and specs. Cooperative community living, capability to communicate, archive, and use knowledge, capability to defend ourselves. Okay. Now, but surprisingly, humans are not superior in everything as compared to other species that we have on Earth. Like many elephants, such as elephants, have much bigger size physically. Insects have much better compound eyes, which have, if you compare eye to eye, of course, their specs of their eyes are much better than our eyes. They can have a much wider solid angle of vision view. Octopus has got 8 arms. We have only two. Sharks get thousands of teeth in their lifetime. We get only two pair of teeth, two sets of teeth. Centipedes have so many stalks to walk on. Many animals can move, swim, fly much faster than us. Dogs can hear ultrasounds, which we cannot. Their sense of smell is also superlative as compared to ours. Animals, many of them have things like horns, thorns, claws, beaks, tails, venom, sting for their defense. We have no defenses for our thing. Other than throwing stone, there is nothing we can do. Some aquatic animal can hibernate and survive wider temperature fluctuation, besides being able to breathe in oxygen dissolved in water. Fireflies, glowworms can emit light, electric ray can produce electric shock. All these capabilities we obviously do not have. So it's not that we are superior in everything. Now let us talk about possibilities of superhuman life form. So in superhuman life form, we expect intelligence level like human life form. It could probably exist somewhere with some variations in body structure, with some different kind of tissues, different kind of organs, different kind of physiological and psychological intelligence and parameters. Yeah, superhumans could have superiority in type and number of sensory inputs that they have and their resolution and range. Probably they could have superiority in the force and speed of the movements that they could produce. But consider the previous slide. Have we not already augmented our biological capability through whatever civil structures, weapons, tools, automobiles, machines, hardware, and software uh, to augment our own biological capability? Okay. So we have grown already well beyond our innate specs. And superhuman may also have that capability, obviously, to be able to synthesize food from inorganic elements, probably something like what plants do. But even if they do that, even if they are so called green superhuman, It does not give them distinct advantage for survival and defense. Can plants defend themselves? Can they survive better than us? No. So it will not be a big point of advantage even if they have that. I mean, we can also probably going further introduce a green gene in our bodies so that we are able to synthesize. We grow a plant on our heads and we are able to prepare our own food. Yeah. Possibilities of superhuman life form. Life forms are essentially based on long chain macromolecules like proteins and their assemblies based on the weakest quasi bonds such as hydrogen bonds. We have seen in previous videos. So the nearest thing which comes to carbon in this regard is probably ammonia, but ammonia is trivalent, therefore it has limited possibility of forming kind of long chain protein molecules that protein molecules are. Yeah. Inorganic atoms, of course, like NaCl, will have very strong bond. They have very small molecule size, so they cannot form a big cooperative complex system. They will always be very simple. So they will not contribute to life form as such. They can't be basis for life, obviously. Macromolecules should be formed generally and maintained at modest temperature, well beyond the boiling point of water. We are not anticipating that something which works at refractory kind of temperature at 1000 degrees centigrade will ever have a life. Tetravalent atoms such as carbon with oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen. These are our recipe for life, mostly because they have covalent bond, coordinate bond, hydrogen bond. And these are about the only choice. And one big feature which I want to highlight is that carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, 12, 14, 16, they have nearly matching molecular masses and atomic numbers. So they form good partners. Okay. You can't have disproportionately sized partners, long chain molecule. So the choice is rather restricted if you are looking for life anywhere. You have to look for these elements. So carbon, oxygen, and water must be in abundance on any planet where you are seeking the possibility of life. And okay, if you say silicon is also tetravalent and in periodic table it is next to carbon, but then silicon requires refractory kind of temperatures for forming molecules and its atomic mass is way bigger than complementing things. So not feasible again. So we are looking for something where the temperature could be below 60 degrees and which will have some light intensity comparable with what we have on Earth. And also there should be some gravitational force like what we have. So the specs of planets gets rather restricted when we put so many conditionals. Yeah. The life forms that have developed on Earth have had a long and specific historical trail of evolution, which has led to the current life forms that we have. For example, first there must have been some macromolecules which have got synthesized inorganically, and then they have combined together and found some lipid vesicles, the membranes, walls, and formed some rudimentary RNAs without mitochondria and elaborate cytoskeleton. So that is the first sign of life. And then some smaller cells have got embedded in some bigger cells of the previous type, and they have assumed a cooperative role of controlling the energetics of the cell, the host cell, and that has become the mitochondria going further. And then the host cell has also developed further elaborate cytoskeleton, nucleus, and DNA is packaged on chromatids. That has been our trail of evolution. And the cells which had chlorophyll, of course, could synthesize hydrocarbon using sunlight, while others had to consume pre-synthesized food from environment. And next, the assembly of multiple cells started forming cooperative system as next level of life form. And through statistical elimination of genetic code which were lesser efficient, lesser survivability, they have got rooted out and the mechanism got progressively refined and it has got carried forward as the building block, as a starting document. But this has taken many, many generations. Okay. So the feature of adapting to slower changes in environment and food has helped us in continuation, transformation, and proliferation of life form. And the features and specs of existing life form has thus evolved. So elsewhere, if there is a life, it is highly unlikely that it will be having the same evolutionary trail like what we have. So the kind of life form which will come, which will be seen there, will be quite different. Okay. So any superhuman or extraterrestrial life must be multicellular, although they could have different mechanism of energy control. Instead of mitochondria, they will have something else, but some other equivalent system to control energetics. Obviously, they could have differently packaged chromatids, and nucleus could be different in appearance, could be more diffuse, more distributed, or number of nuclei. They could have quite different genetic code, because their tRNAs and translation tables may be different. So their genetic code, that is correspondence of amino radical to chromatids, would be to the nucleotides, could be different for sure. So their genetic code itself may be different. The tissues, the physiological systems, the parameters and organs will most certainly be quite different. Something like neural intelligence and sensors must be there for them to have learned and developed to control, to modify environment conducively, and develop intelligence and adaptive capability. Albeit the specs and type of sensors would be quite different in terms of range, resolution, and what they sense, the kind of wavelength frequencies they could sense. Perhaps they could have direct electromagnetic antennae and X-ray vision or thermographic vision, for all you know. Something like muscle would be there, but it could look quite different as a tissue and as a structure. They could have limbs, fins, or wings, which may look vastly different. Possibly they could have even the wheels or propellers grown directly on the body instead of limbs. Something like digestive system, respiratory system, reproductive system, immunology, scavenging system would be there. They may or may not have sexual reproduction. Probably they may have asexual reproduction or a combo. Maybe more than one parent, more than two parents are required to cause one new life. Yeah, so everything is possible. Now, if ever, again a picture from internet, so invasion of ET. Now, when we talk of ET, we tend to make them look like human with two limbs and two legs and a neck and a face and a trunk. Yeah, which is highly unlikely. So, possibility of superhuman life form. Yes, the neural kind of learning must have evolved very differently. Instead of vision or auditory or input dependent, we have learned mostly through sounds and through vision and through touch and taste and smell. Probably they would have grown up learning through different senses. So yes, they could have some language for communication, but then it is unlikely that it will be based on symbol or phonetic or picture based script. Probably they may be directly using pulse width modulation, the electromagnetics or optics or laser. So some other mode of communication, some other code of communication, some other language of communication can expect. And as we have, perhaps they would have augmented their biological capability with a lot of add-on dwellings for themselves, producing processed food, adding on mechanical aids, vehicles, arms, and computer-like devices. Yes. Given that nearest such planet could be still several hundred years light years away, it's very unlikely for us or for them to be able to reach within our respective lifespans. Now, they would also have a lifespan like us, probably. So, hence the thought of ET invasion and warfare are very far fetched, because it is unlikely that we would ever communicate with them, or they could communicate with us, or we would have any common interest to have a conflict with them also. Unless we make a food for them or earth resources are valued by them, unlikely. They live in their soup, we live in our soup. It's simple. So our worlds are possibly quite different and isolated, and they will remain like that. So even as we may have some stray exposures to each other and some evidences that they are there, but then beyond that, nothing much. So surely they would have different vulnerabilities, they have different poisons, they have different ailments, they have different medicines, different therapies, different foods. It's unlikely for us to know what would hurt them or what would please them, what would destroy them, and they would also not know something about us. Just as their biology would be very different, so also their add-on devices, equipment, weapons, vehicles, communication, and knowledge repository would be vastly different. So they are unlikely to know our things, and we are unlikely to know theirs. Now, war of civilization now onward will never be hand-to-hand fight. Both sides will have their supercomputers, mighty machines, communication systems, lasers, nukes, AI-powered weapon systems, and such like from ET side as well. And there is really no point in comparing like to like biological superiority alone. We have to compare their versus our survivability, resilience, and motivation. We have to basically compare their ecosystem with our ecosystem. Now, there is another aspect of superhuman life form that from single cellular physiological level intelligence, that was the first big leap. That when we moved from a single cellular to our bodies with all the physiological sophistication that we have, that was one big revolution or one big leap in evolution. Further to it, second big leap happened when we had neural and psychological intelligence added. So that was the second big leap, coupled with the refined dexterity to be able to change our environment and keep on adding to our innate capabilities. And next big leap could only be at a level where we say that individual human is one subunit and there is a bigger cooperative life form which is comprising of several humans. The multi-human life form is another level of life form. Now, if we see our cities, are they not already a superhuman life form of the next level? That's a philosophical question. Because any cities, organizations anywhere in the world have many common features nowadays. All of them have some transportation system, some logistics, some interconnectivity, some resource management, police, defense services, fire brigade, legal services, municipality, health services, education centers, and all the cities have their adaptive feedback based coordinated controls. So they have many features of a living organism. So if we treat our cities as a living organisms, that is the Superman. So we already seem to know the Superman in a way as a higher level entity, the organization, city, state, nation, international community as an entity. Yes. So any comparisons now on should be at the planet level, not at the individual animal level at all. Okay, with this we conclude the today's talk. I am sure you would have found the talk as a food for thought, as something that you can think about going further. And the last talk will be shortly coming, and that will be summarizing what engineers can learn from the biology side and what the life sciences related people and medicos can learn from engineers so that we can innovate in our respective spheres and we can have a better synergy going further. Bye bye.